this video, we're going to talk about pull requests and branch protection. And this video kind of assumes that you've watched the previous one about pull requests and forking and things like that. So if you haven't, go back and watch that first one. But in this video, we're going to really just dig more into pull requests, what they are, what they accomplish, and some best practices. So we're going to talk about what is a pull request. I've used this term several times, and if you're not familiar with what a pull request is, we're going to look at that and what it actually does. We're going to look at the kind of anatomy of a pull request, how to open one and then fork it from your fork and merge it into your team's or organizational repo. What makes a good pull request in terms of title and description, and then we're going to talk a little bit about branch protection rules, why teams use them, and how that can affect your pull request's ability to be merged in. So to get us started, we'll just start right off with what is a pull request? Because if you've never seen this function or maybe never used one in practice, this could be a really new concept for you. So the core idea, a pull request, or often known as a PR, is a formal request to merge your branch's changes into another branch, typically main, but depending on the project, could be a larger feature branch, could be a new version branch, something like that. And it's not technically a Git concept, it's a GitHub feature. Or if you're using something like GitLab or Bitbucket, this is a feature built on top of what Git, G-I-T, right, already provides for us. And the name comes from the repo owner and their ability to pull your changes in. So what does it do? Well, first off, it shows what we call a diff, which is which lines changed, what was added, typically in green, and what was removed, typically in red. It creates a discussion thread where teammates, organizational members, whomever can leave comments, ask questions, and request changes. And it also serves as a record. Every pull request in a repo's history shows who's changed what, why, and who approved it. So why do they matter? Well, every change that your repo has to go through, a pull request means you can't push directly to main. It gives your main a little bit of protection. And as we've talked about things like continuous integration and continuous delivery, we don't want just anyone writing to main because main is essentially going straight to production. It also gives us the ability to perform code review. And these happen inside of our pull requests. And this is where our teammates or the person who owns the repo can leave feedback. Once we get to kind of down the road with our continuous integration pipeline, these are going to run automatically. So when a pull request is opened, the CI pipeline is going to check that tests and things pass before this pull request is maybe eligible to be merged. So when you're looking at the pull request on the GitHub site, there are 3 tabs in every pull request. So one is for conversation. This is the main thread where everyone can talk. So inline code comments, general discussion, review approvals, merge history, and this is where code review happens. So when you look at conversation, you'll see a lot of different things going on. Commits are then individual commits that make up this pull request. So if you've been working on this feature branch for a while and you have 20-something commits, they're all going to show up under the commits tab. And this is really useful when we're reviewing a really large pull request and we want to look kind of commit by commit rather than all at once. And then the files change section, this is our diff view. This is going to show you every file that's touched, every line added or removed. And when we're on the QA side doing our review, this is typically where you'll spend most of your time kind of looking through what has changed. So let's look at the steps we would take to open a pull request from a fork. And this is why I was saying, if you haven't watched the previous video about branches and forks, then you want to watch that one first, because if you're not sure what a fork is, this might not make as much sense. So when you are doing this, you are doing it from GitHub on the form. You need to identify several things to let GitHub know exactly what are you asking to merge. So it's going to need the base repository. So this is like your org main repo, your team repo, whatever that is. If this is an open source project, this is the main repo you are contributing to. So not your fork. Then the base branch, this is where you want your code to end up. So if you're trying to merge into main, this is main. If you're trying to merge into like feature 2, then it should be feature 2 or whatever branch you're targeting where your code is going to go. Head repository is your code. So this is your repo, whatever you're trying to merge in. And then compare is the specific branch that you are working on. So inside of your fork, whatever your repo is, if you have branch is like a feature branch, whatever that's named, that's what goes in the compare. You do need to give your pull request a title, and the title should be, fairly specific to help the person who's going to be reviewing it, and your project manager may have a specific way that they want these to be named. But I have an example here at the bottom. If you added something like my changes or work in progress, they're not going to like that. So something like add book search by author is a very descriptive title for what is included in this pull request. So let's just take a look real quick at what this looks like inside of GitHub in case you've never visited the pull request tab before. You can see new pull request over here, and then GitHub will attempt to fill in some of this information based on what it thinks you're trying to do. But if you need to change either the base repository or that head repository or any of the branches associated, you can do that up in here. So we could say we're trying to merge this fork's main into this fork's main, and then it will pull up how many commits, the files changed, how many contributors are involved, and we can see all the commits when they take place. Here's the diff. And then we can create the pull request, which will then allow us to make the notes and give it a title and write out any description that we might need to write to make sure that whoever is going to review this understands what we are trying to do or accomplish. So let's talk about branch protection rules, because these are rules that we can set up on a GitHub repo that prevent certain actions on a protected branch, typically main, that won't allow things to be merged unless specific conditions are met. These help enforce our team's workflow automatically and do not allow anyone to bypass them either on accident or on purpose. And so a lot of repos will have a rule that requires at least one approving review before merging. So a teammate or someone who is responsible in that QA role has to explicitly approve of the pull request. You can't merge your own work without a second set of eyes. So if you open a pull request and no one reviews it, it's just going to sit there and wait, and it can't be merged until someone does that QA job. And this is really the industry standard, because branch protection prevents, I'll just push directly to main real quick, which is how bugs typically ship to production. The required review creates accountability, someone's name is on every approval, and later as we move into those continuous integration checks, those are going to have to pass before merging, so you make sure that all of your tests run, and broken tests means that bad code never reaches the main. So some key takeaways, right? Pull requests ultimately are how your changes get from your fork into the team repo. They're always going to go through some kind of review, or should at least always go through some kind of review, and you should never be directly checking things into a repo unless maybe it's a pet project and you're the only person who ever works on it. But get into a good habit. Branch protection enforces this idea automatically so that your team can't accidentally skip the process. And I recommend that you get some practice, right? Make a fork, create a branch, push a change, open your own pull request. You don't need to have a team to practice this. If you do have a GitHub repo you've been working on, maybe your own pet project, and you have been just checking things directly into main, go create a branch. Go walk yourself through the pull request process and approve your own pull request just so that you can get a little better of a feeling for what this process actually looks like. So let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.